Good day, everyone, and you are so welcome to our conversation today for the Caring Presence YouTube channel. Our special guest today is Dr. Albert Banerjee from the St. Thomas University in Fredericton, Canada, and he is a research chair and a gerontologist and assistant professor. So welcome, Albert, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Let's have a round of introductions. Everyone can just say what they feel prepared to say about themselves, and then after that we can start our conversation. Anyone can start. Albert, would you mind starting?
I absolutely don't mind starting. I'm a, as you said, a research chair here in gerontology, and I'm interested in gerontology in a large part because we can ask questions you often can't ask elsewhere. I first began my work in hospice palliative care, and what I was really fascinated by as a young undergraduate student was how important love was. And I was left with a question of why do we have to wait to die to organize healthcare around love? And as a young 20-year-old, that seemed like a crazy question to ask, so I kept it to myself for a while. But it's turned out to be something that has really oriented me.
Wonderful. That's a wonderful testimony of who you are and your love for people.
Okay, let me go then. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Lepile Sihularo. I'm an associate professor here in Northwest University, Mahikeng campus. I'm a product of Prof. Banerjee. She supervised me in my master's and PhD, and now we are working together as supervisors or promoters for our PhD candidates. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Shall I continue?
Thanks.
My name is Guus Timmerman. I'm a research fellow of the Presence Foundation in the Netherlands. I wrote together with my colleague Andries Baat a chapter in Emerence's book about methodology, and I'm writing with him a book, a Relational Caring.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
That's me.
Great, thanks.
Sorry.
Yeah, you can go first. Okay, Prof, we can continue.
Yeah, sorry. Because Guus is my colleague, so it's the same foundation, the Presence Foundation in the Netherlands. And I'm working there a year or 10 ago. I started working there. Therefore, I worked in a hospital as a manager. And now we are training and consulting to organizations in healthcare, disability care, and social welfare who are asking questions or wanting to improve the quality of the work. So that's my main occupation.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Okay, will I go next? Okay, I'm Albert Banerjee. I'm a lecturer at the Northwest University, and I love older persons and also all the staff working for them, the nurses and caregivers. I like to empower them to really be able to provide better care to older persons. And I'm currently busy with my PhD. I'm exploring good care to older persons through presence practices. And then I plan to design and develop an intervention to promote good care to older persons through presence practices. So I'm progressing well, but it keeps me humble, and I read a lot. I've read some of your articles, Prof. Albert, and I'm very, very impressed. So thank you also for the research you've done. It's wonderful, all the people that have collaborated with your research. I'm really very excited about it. I'm glad to be here.
My name is Professor Miriam Moahi. I'm an associate professor here at Northwest University, Mahikeng campus. I actually joined Northwest University in 2020 from University of Pretoria. And I'm a mental health expert. And you know that, if you really are in mental health and caring goes hand in hand. And loving people with mental health challenges made me realize that, working with Professor Banerjee is actually a good thing to take this caring into another level. So thank you very much, Prof. Banerjee, for being part of you in this journey.
Thanks, Miriam. Are you next, Christel or Kathleen?
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Kathleen Vroneman. I'm also a lecturer at the Northwest University. My specialty is in nursing education. Prof M, I'm also a product of yours. Like Prof Seolaru said, she's been my supervisor for my master's degree, and she helped me through this journey for my PhD. And I've developed a model where nurse educators can facilitate presence through reflective practices. And I'm proud to say that I'm submitting my thesis the 29th of April. So,
Yay.
thank you.
Congratulations. Yes, thanks, Reese. I'm listening to you all, and I also just want to say I'm also a product of you and in relationship with you. So thank you so much to each and every one of you for the work that you are doing and also enriching my life. So Albert, over to you. Our question to you this afternoon is, what is your view on presence and relational care? And after you've shared your view, I would like to open the floor then to questions and conversation. So over to you.
That sounds great. I think I'm going to keep my remarks short because I want to engage more in a dialogue, but I have found, and I will say that I'm new to the concept of presence, which is why I'm really grateful for the work that's being done by you and your colleagues on presence, because I think it provides a way into thinking about quality of care that is radically different from certainly where we are in Canada, and perhaps Canada and the US. Our approach to quality of care tends to be through privatizing care institutions. So we offer flexibility, which is not actually what happens in practice, or through auditing. So monitoring, measuring, regulating. We recently in this province had a case where an elderly man moved into a nursing home. He was experiencing dementia, but otherwise was physically fine. And the family got reports that he had fallen and eventually was put into hospital and he died. And so there was an inquiry, and it turned out that in the report that came out after a couple of years, one of the things that we found was that he was being beat up by his roommate. And the home knew about it, and they hid it at every step of the way. And so the report that we got that we just came out this year talks about the needs for more standards, more monitoring, and more regulation. And it seems like here we have a crisis of the imagination. Kathleen was talking about organizational practices that can incorporate presence. People knew about what was happening, but there wasn't the capacity to come together to talk in a place that was safe and figure out how to handle this situation. And it seems like we're stuck in trying to solve problems with care by at least here measuring and monitoring. So what I really like about presence is how it gives us a way into quality of care that first of all looks at the person providing care. Are they okay? Are they able to be present? Have they done the work that's required? And then the relationship between them and the person they're caring for. And then it allows us to ask us if the working conditions enable this relationship to unfold. Do they have time? Do they have leadership that supports this? And what are the broader social policies that come in? So I guess as a sociologist, I look at that interaction, that relational care between two people, and I'm interested, I guess, from my psychological background, what they need to do to be present, but then also how you expand outwards from the organizational and leadership practices to the social policies that here in Canada get rid of regulations around staffing levels, for instance. So where we could have regulations, we've pulled them out. And regulate around other things. So we have so many regulations that we can't actually monitor compliance in our nursing homes because it's too cumbersome. So I like how presence, for me at least, learning about the concepts, pull these strands together and gives us a way of thinking about quality through, in a sense, an interdisciplinary relational lens. And one more thing I'll just say in terms of the work, it pays attention to relational work, which has been neglected. There's a lovely book, which I cite in one of my papers by a professor from Harvard University. It's her dissertation, Disappearing Acts. And it talks about gender dimensions of work and how the relational dimensions of work are treated as personal attributes rather than skills. And so we don't tend to pay attention to that. We often don't value it. And we need to really learn to see it as a practice. In Huss's chapter, he talks about the practice of care. And I think that is so important to attend to that. So those are my remarks. I hope that wasn't too long.
Yeah, I think you touched on so many things that we are also concerned about, and it makes me feel sad to hear that there are so many regulations in place that we don't see the other person in front of us, and that I suppose it's a safe space then to rather rely on regulations to know what to do, but as a result, people die. So it's really very saddening to hear that. And I think in South Africa, there's similar situations, although our concern, I think, starts at a different place. And yeah, so any comments from the floor? Anyone who wants to ask a question or add an idea? Let's have a spontaneous conversation so that anyone who would like to share and say is welcome.
Maybe I can just add what I see in South Africa now with my research. The staff, the nurses and caregivers are really under a lot of pressure. And I think, as you say now, we must first look at them. And then when they are emotionally healthy, actually, they will be able to practice presence. So we have a lot of staff shortages, a lot of problems with enough resources, and it seems like the same thing is happening all over the world. So that's what I like about the presence, because it has this benefits for the nurse and caregiver and for the older person. So I think I hear the same things from the other countries.
Can I say something? I I just want to actually emphasize that the issue of caring needs to start from when we recruit our students. We need to actually have a way of being able to identify if those students from first year will be able to care for our patients in the hospital. Because some of, I don't know with other countries, but here in South Africa, is because, being a nurse, it's not only, going there to take care of patients and have this love and caring. It's because there were this rumor where nursing is about poverty alleviation. When you are a nurse, you are going to get paid. And then they just come to nursing because they are going to get money for just to survive. But caring actually is not within them. Hence, at the end, we come across those nurses who are really not even understanding why they are nurses, why they are in the profession. Mm-hmm. And the caring presence is not even there. Thank you.
I would like to say I agree fully with Prof. Moagi, because with this model that I developed, I really identified that dire need of first-year students to feel that their nurse educators are present with them. They're really there, they care about them. And that was the idea why I developed this model, is that we as educators, because the end product is our nurses exiting as after their 4 years, entering into the nursing profession. So where do they learn about that present skills? Where do they learn how to be present for their patients? It starts with you as the educator. And when I collected data from the students, all of them said they wish they had that type of behavior role model to them from their first year, so that they can have a background on how to go and care for their patients in the hospital. So that is why, for me, this is so crucial. And that's why I say care starts, where's the first contact we have? It's when your first year students enter into the higher education field. The first time they have a contact with that, you as an educator, you are there to teach them or to facilitate and show them how to go about care for someone else.
Mm-hmm. So if I hear you correctly, in a sense, you're saying that it's a skill that can be learned and needs to be learned right from the start.
Yes, what I also hear is that we really need to care for nurses, and that some healing needs to take place in them as well, in us as well, when we are taking care of other people. And it's something that I hear every time when we talk about presence, and then I go on and I focus on what is expected of nurses and how nurses should be and what they should do, but I forget that they are also people, and they also need healing and presence.
Yeah, Prof. Albert, if I can just add as well, what I realized as well is, yes, you can, it's a skill that you can teach, but just by being present yourself, by what you role model to the students, show them how to go and interact with their patients. If you have a good relationship with your students, like for example, I know one of the relational skills is just welcome them, greet them, be there for them, that they really listen to them. Yeah. Just by demonstrating that, they get an idea of, yes, this is how I need to treat my patients as well. And that's just a start, and I hope it will flow over to the professional practice as well, because what the educators as well as the students said with the data collection is they want this type of presence, like a short learning program or all that skills be taught in the practice as well, because the already qualified nurses, needs to be made aware again. We all have that in us, but I think we forgot that ethics, that caring, that why did we choose to become nurses in the first place?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think, you know, as an educator too, I think about my relationship with my students, and there is a big dimension of care and presence that we can bring. And as you're saying, modeling to our students so they experience it firsthand.
No, definitely.
Yeah, and what I really see, what's happening in our province at this stage, a lot of the retirement villages, the private ones, they actually have private contractors that take over all the services. And that's not always the best thing, because they try to keep everything as cheap as possible with the minimum staff that's working. And I'm a bit concerned that all those kind of things, I also saw in some of the articles that I've read, that they don't really recommend that. And I agree with Kathleen. I think it's very, very important that we start with the first year students, but it needs to go through all the years. And then the people that's already in practice, most of them don't really know about presence and presence practices and how to practice it and all the benefits for the older persons and themselves. So we really need to get it in there. And I think, Prof. Albert, that reflective conversations that you recommend can work excellent. I just see in some of our places, the staff don't even really have the time to sit together and have that conversations. That is the ideal situation, and you need someone there that can facilitate it and things like that. But I think it is very good. It can work very well. So I'm now playing with different ideas how I'm going to get the presence into the residential care facilities. But I learned from all of you. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll certainly add that issue of time is a really big one here. And, you know, I'm in that paper, I write about a program where they tried to implement this. In a way, it was developed from the ground up. And what was fascinating was when you bring people together in these nursing homes, they're large, they actually don't know each other, first of all, and they're just angry because if you do something I don't like, I don't understand it's because of your responsibility or because of your job and what it requires of you. I just assume you're an idiot and I blame you and I get mad at you. And so when you bring these people together and they don't have the time to discuss, there is a lot of anger that needs to be processed and worked through. And we're moving in a direction that makes having this time more difficult, unfortunately, as you point out.
That's always been my question, and perhaps Gies and Jan and Albert can teach us about that, is where's the starting point? And also Pietro and Kathleen, everyone, you are saying that you would like to make a difference in practice. So and Albert, you are saying it was started from the ground up. So there must be a need from the practice side to change or to do something. So what lessons can you teach us about how to approach an organization if we want to introduce the idea of presence to them and relational care and relational team building? What would be a good way of going to a hospital and telling them about presence and seeing a change happening there?
But does anyone have an answer to that? Who's?
Maybe Jan is the most experienced one, but I would say that there is not one receipt to do that. Huh? And I think you cannot think you have to start from the base, from down to up, or from top to down. It has to happen both way. Where I think it's very important that you have ambassadors, so people that are in one way touched by the idea that working in a relational way is not only important, but is the basis of what you're doing. And when you have ambassadors, that's helpful in an organization like a hospital, but very difficult, but because you have to deal with powers, or how would you say, systemic pressures, thinking that is not helpful, how to implement. So you can teach nurses, but then when they go to work in the hospital, they have to deal with other ways of thinking, other ways of quality measurement, or that's very difficult. I don't think we have the answer. We've tried it in several hospitals. Jan can maybe tell more about the hospital in Tilburg where we have done that. And in the history of our foundation, we found that we had to rethink care on all the levels. So not only on the bedside, so to say, but also about what kind of leadership you need, what kind of quality management you need, what kind of education you need. It's an encompassing approach. So you need an encompassing approach to deal with that. I don't have one receipt, sorry.
In my experience, I worked a very long time in a hospital, so as Guus mentioned, but also in other organizations which are working a long way with us. And what I think is important, it's a long, it's a 5-year program. It's a long working time. It's a culture changing program in the way. And what we therefore need is always a well-informed insider. Because on the outside, as a consultant, or in what relationship doesn't matter, but if you don't have an insider who goes with the ID, who supports the ID, who makes the connections with other people, but also with other policy teams in the organizations, it doesn't last. It goes away within a year or in 2 years, and individuals profit from training in presence, but the organization as a whole doesn't make a very big step in working in these ways. So the well-informed insider or the well-valued insider, we think in organizations who have those kind of people, it lasts longer. It's a longer program, and you make connections in time with other parts of the organizations, and it stays on the agenda a long time. And if you don't have such kind of support, it doesn't last very long, and you have to relive it again and again, but it's mostly slowly dies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm just thinking about the paper that on reflection meetings and how that process, first of all, it had a facilitator, but the executive director of the organization championed her. Yeah. And so she had that kind of backing, and that it wouldn't have happened without it. It would have died. Because you are going against, as Guus pointed out, thinking that's just incompatible and different perspectives.
Yeah, and another experience, and I read your paper, so I'm wondering how that was in your project. Is what I found very difficult is group dynamics. Sometimes it works, reflection processes, all kind of intervention. It's hard, but it works. People start experience the good things what it's bringing to them. Mm-hmm. But when there are group dynamics, makes it also very hard. So we experience in some kind of organizations that the group dynamics are so hard that a good reflection process doesn't start.
Yeah.
And we are very much wondering how what we can do, and if presence is the answer, or just is another kind of experience the answer to these problems. Sometimes we don't get it started, and leadership does something with it. That's sure. But no, sometimes you can't. I can't make it work. Let's say. Let's stay by myself. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the challenge of relational care. It is relational, and that means that in some cases you won't have the pieces there. Certainly the process that I saw, the facilitator had a very strong character, and sometimes would take time to earn, much time to earn people's trust. In other cases, I know people were let go. You know, they didn't fit, you know, back to this kind of situation where, you know, you need to be trained and be open to being present. And being present in that capacity, I found, was one of the most fundamental. They spoke about empathy, being willing to listen and be curious about the other person's point of view, and hold it as worthwhile with respect. And it's not often there. Sometimes group dynamics can be a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
Even with my data collection, I've realized where I had the buy-in of the manager and the nursing services manager, everything went smoothly because I need to have the mediator and an independent person during the COVID time. The mediator recruited the participants, and the independent person got the informed consent and assisted with the data collection. And I could see clearly the facilities where the manager and nursing services manager were really positive about presence and the research, are waiting for the results, I want to implement it. There, everything was going according to the clock, where the other places where they were involved in the beginning, and then they actually asked other people to do it that were not actually nurses or professional people, there I can see things are moving slower. So this is really very important, even now with the data collection, that I need to buy in from management and people more in authority positions.
Yeah, power is important, certainly. And as is language. I think that's what's so great about the work on relational care and relational labor, as well as the concept of presence. It gives us language to talk about this, which I think is really missing. You know, I love the Dutch scholar Anne-Marie Moll's work on the logic of care. I just think that's so important. We don't, here in Canada, I don't think we really understand care well, and to recognize that it has its own logic and skills and ethics hasn't permeated in terms of managerial culture, let's say, and policy making as well. We still hope we can get good care on top of bad working conditions and disrespect.
I'm so curious to know more about, where do you think that starts from if people have difficulty in understanding care? Where does that come from?
Where does the difficulty come from, or where does the change come from?
Where does the difficulty come from?
the way I've come to understand it, I wrote a paper called Epistemological Violence, which drew on Vandana Shiva's work and critiques of Western science, which is reductionistic and mechanical, right? And that fits very well with audit culture. We're going to, everything that matters, we're going to turn it into a variable and we are going to measure it. And that's how we're going to ensure quality. You know, someone, I forget who from Canada, had said, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. That's a particular way of understanding the world that fits within this kind of mechanical, reductionist, control-oriented vision. Whereas, you know, and so rules and regulations and all of that makes sense. Breaking care into little time bits that you can commodify and sell and then track. All of that sort of logic works very well together, as Vandana Shiva says. Growth capitalism, the Industrial Revolution, and reductionist science, it's part of the same project. We're still very much in the project, and that's where power lies. Relational work, relational thinking is very different. I think it exists in a different world.
No, definitely. Sure. Interesting. Thanks so much to everyone sharing your thoughts and sharing ideas. I always feel inspired after speaking with people about presence and having new ideas and wanting to go and try that out. So in closing, would anyone like to still ask a question or make a comment?
I would like to tell about a colleague of us. She's working for a school where people are educated that are going to work as a caregiver or in garbage collection or in security or in techniques, automobile techniques. And she's asked to promote relational work in this school. Not only in the caring education, but also in how educators are dealing with each other, how they are dealing with their students, how the managers are dealing with the school. And there are a lot of teachers in the school that are in favor of this idea. But there are also other teachers in the school that are not in favor of this idea, working relationally. And it's both in the caring departments as in the technological department. So, and now she started to collect stories from these educators about a student that has impressed them. Tell us one story about a student that you still remember. And they are telling these stories. And some would say, well, it was very important, but it hasn't to do with my work. It was beside my work, but still it impressed me. And others would say, no, it's in part of my work. But she collects these stories, and that's a step to make it debatable, to bring it into the discussion, starting from their stories. So not she is telling them what does this mean to work relational in this school, but she's collecting these stories, and in that way making it a discussion. How are we doing this? It's a long way, but she tells me that may be the only way to prevent that you're working only with a small group and it does not have an impact on the school, and to have a possibility that everyone, not everyone, but a lot of these teachers into this project. Important is that she has she's backed up by the executive of this school. That's very important. But she realized that it's not enough to say, well, the executive wants us to do it. She has to, in one way, connect with stories that teachers recognized as important stories, whether they think it's part of their work or whether they think it's not part of their work. But that's where she starts. And I'm very curious about how she's progressing with this approach.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, I would like to.
May I ask something while we have all these clever people together? I'm busy now with a systematic review, and I'm trying to get all the presence practices that can promote good care to older persons. And then my study leaders tell me all the time, focus on presence, not on good care and good care practices. But what I do see in some of the articles that they talk about good care and older persons, but then it's about relational caring. They don't always talk about presence. Must I still just only focus on presence, or can we assume if the article is about relational caring that it is also presence? Because that is one of the gray areas, because somewhere along the line at the end, my articles that I do select for critical appraisal need to have presence in, together with all older persons or good care or a practice or so on. But I see that somewhere along the way, some will fall out if I only say presence. It's just something that I throw to you, and I would like your opinion on that, because we'll need to make a decision at the end. What stays in, what goes out.
I think being present to the underlying meaning, right? That's exactly what we're talking about with people. When we're with them, we're present to what's there behind the surface features. Same thing with reading an article, right? They might not use the word, but are they actually talking about presence? So as a methodology, applying presence to reading.
Okay, that's a good answer. Okay. Jan and Gies, that's so working with presence. What can what's your opinion?
I often use indeed the word relational caring instead of presence, and it depends on the organization, because sometimes they understand relational caring better than presence. Okay, they don't know presence, but sometimes organization in the Netherlands say, do we have to become a present organization? And sometimes they say we don't want to become a present organization. I don't know why that is. Sometimes we have a discussion about that. But sometimes the word relational caring resounds sometimes better than presence. Sometimes it sounds like a methodology. Okay, you can correct me. And some organization doesn't like it. But when you are selecting articles, I think the word relational caring or relational work, it's good to see what's the underlying assumption about relational caring, because you have the underlying assumption which look like presence, but sometimes you have the underlying assumptions who become more in the area of the measurement and the monitoring and the making of and the regulation. Dus the underlying assumptions when you are selecting articles, it's done. The second step is then to look at the underlying assumptions which are used to fill or to define relational caring.
Okay, thank you. So, because it's quite interesting that I've searched for presence and all caring presence, nursing presence, true presence, all the kinds of presence. With some of the combinations, I could put presence in alone, but then you get a lot of irrelevant articles because presence is present in a lot of titles and abstracts. But then the articles that came out from, I first had searches on presence alone, then presence with good care and presence with older persons and presence with practices or interventions, and then I started to combine them. So I got a lot of articles, but in them, some of them speak about relational caring, but I hear what you say. So I will see how so I didn't search for relational caring with a presence group, but together with good care, quality care, relational care, I've put it in that group, in the good care group. I didn't put it in the presence group, and that's why I was wondering about it. But thank you, I hear what you say, thanks. I understand better now, all of you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation and your inputs. It's really a meaningful conversation. Thank you, Albert, for sharing your wisdom, and to everyone. And I hope that we can continue conversations such as this and get to know one another better, and perhaps also even work together in some way.
Thank you for the invite again. It's
Very
nice to be part of such an international group too. Very exciting.
And Albert, I just want to say that promising practices of yours, I think they are excellent. Tell all your collaborators, I'm really going to implement it in some other place, but I'm going to use it somewhere, hopefully. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye.
much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.